We're ready for the next chapter of the BFG, and this is called The Great Plan. You've absolutely got to stop them, Sophie cried. Put me back in your pocket quick and we'll chase after them and warn everyone in England that they're coming. Redunculous and impossible, said the BFG said. They is going 2 times as fast as me, and they is finishing their guzzle before we is even halfway. But we can't just sit here and do nothing, Sophie cried. How many girls and boys are they going to eat tonight? Many, said the BFG. The flesh-lump-eating giant alone has the most squackling wopsy appetite. Will he snatch them out of their beds while they're sleeping? Like peas out of a poodle, said the BFG. I can't bear to think of it, Sophie cried. Then don't, said the BFG. For years and years I is sitting here on this very rock every night after night when they is galloping away, and I is feeling so sad for all the human beings they is going to gobble up. But I has had to get used to it. There is nothing I can do. If I wasn't a titchy little runny giant only 24 feet high, I would be stopping them. But that is absolutely out of the window. Do you always know where they're going? Sophie asked. Always, said the BFG. Every night they is yelling to me as they is going past. The other day they was yelling, we is off to Mississippi and to Miss Surrey to guzzle them both. Disgusting, said Sophie. I hate them. She and the big friendly giant sat quietly side by side on the blue rock in the gathering dusk. Sophie had never felt so helpless in her life. After a while she stood up and cried out, I can't stand it. Just think of those poor girls and boys who are going to be eaten alive in a few hours' time. We can't sit here and do nothing. We've got to go after those brutes. No, said the BFG. We must, Sophie cried. Why won't you go? The BFG sighed and shook his head firmly. I has told you 5 or 6 times, he said, and the third will be the last. I is never showing myself to human beings. Why ever not? If I do, they will be putting me in a zoo with all the jiggy rafts and the catty piddlers. Nonsense, Sophie said, and they will be sending you straight bad to the norphanage, said the BFG. Grown-up human beings is not famous for their kindness. They is all squiffle rotters and grink sledgers. That simply isn't true, said Sophie. Some of them are very kind indeed. Who? Said the BFG. Name one. Well, the Queen of England, Sophie said. You can't call her a squiffle rotter or a grink sledger. Well, said the BFG, you can't call her a squeak pip or a not muncher either, Sophie said, getting angrier and angrier. The flesh lump eater is longing dearly to guzzle her up, said the BFG, smiling a little now. Who, the Queen? Asked Sophie. Yes, said the BFG. Flesh lump eater says he is never eating a queen, and he thinks perhaps she has an especially scrumptious flavor. How dare he? But Flesh lump eater says there was too many soldiers around her palace, and he dursn't try it. He'd better not, Sophie said. He is also saying he would like very much to guzzle one of the soldiers in his pretty red suit, but he is worried about those big black furry hats they is wearing. He thinks that they might be sticking in his throat. I hope he chokes, Sophie said. Flesh lump eater is a very careful giant, said the BFG. Sophie was silent for a few moments, and suddenly, in a voice filled with excitement, she cried out, I've got it. By golly, I've got it. Got what? Said the BFG. The answer, said Sophie. We'll go to the Queen. It's a terrific idea. If I went and told the Queen about those disgusting man-eating giants, I'm sure she'd do something about it. The BFG looked down at her sadly and shook his head. She is never believing you, he said. Never in a month of Mondays. I think she would. Never, the BFG said. It is sounding such a wonky tall story the Queen will be laughing and saying, what awful rubble squash. She would not. Of course she would, said the BFG. I has told you before that human beings is simply not believing in giants. Then it's up to us to find a way to make her believe in them, said Sophie. And how is you getting in to see the Queen anyway? The BFG asked. Now hold on a sec, Sophie said. Just you hold on a sec because I've got another idea. Your idea is full of crodswoggle, said the BFG. Not this one, Sophie said. You say that if we tell the Queen, she would never believe us? But I'm certain she wouldn't, said the BFG. But we aren't going to tell her, Sophie said excitedly. We don't have to tell her. We will make her dream it. That is even more froth-bunkling suggestion, said the BFG. Dreams is lots of fun, but nobody is believing in dreams either. You was only believing in a dream while you was actually dreaming it. But as soon as you was waking up, you was saying, oh, thank goodness, it was only a dream. Don't you worry about that part of it, Sophie said. I can fix that. Never can you fix it, said the BFG. I can. I swear I can. But first of all, let me ask you a very important question. Here it is. Can you make a person dream absolutely anything in the world? Oh, anything you like, the BFG said proudly. If I said I wanted to dream that I was in a flying bathtub with silver wings, could you make me dream it? I could, said the BFG. But how? Sophie said. You obviously don't have exactly that dream in your collection. I do not, said the BFG, but I could soon be mixing it up. How could you mix it up? It is a little bit like mixing a cake, the BFG said. If you was putting in the right amounts of all the different things into it, you was making the cake come out any way you want it, sugary, spongy, curranty, Christmassy, or grobswitchy. It is the same with dreams. Go on, Sophie said. I has dillions of dreams on my shelves, right or left. Right, said Sophie. I has dreams about bathtubs, lots of them. I has dreams about silver wings. I have dreams about flying. So all I have to do is mix those dreams together in the proper way, and I is very quickly making a dream where you is flying in a bathtub with silver wings. I see what you mean, Sophie said, but I didn't know you could mix one dream with another. Dreams like being mixed, said the BFG. They is getting very lonesome all by themselves in those glassy bottles. Right, Sophie said. Now then, do you have dreams about the Queen of England? Oh, lots of them, said the BFG. How about giants? Of course, said the BFG. And about giants eating people? Swiggles of them, said the BFG. And about little girls like me? That is the commonest of all, said the BFG. I has bottles and bottles of dreams about little girls. And you could mix them all up as I want you to, Sophie said, getting more and more excited. Of course, said the BFG. But how is this helping us? I think you was barking up the wrong dog. Now hold on, Sophie said. Listen carefully. I want you to mix a dream which you will blow into the Queen of England's bedroom when she is asleep. And this is how it will go. Now hang on a mimic, said the BFG. How was I possibly going to get near enough to the Queen of England's bedroom to blow in my dream? You was talking dumb silly. I'll tell you that later, Sophie said. For the moment, please listen carefully. Here is the dream I want you to mix. Are you paying attention? Very close, said the BFG. I want the Queen to dream that 9 disgusting giants, each one about 50 feet tall, are galloping to England in the night. She must dream their names as well. What are their names again? Flesh Lump Eater, Man Hugger, Bone Cruncher, Child Chewer, Meat Dripper, Gizzard Gulper, Maid Masher, Blood Bottler, and the Butcher Boy. Let her dream all those names, she said, and let her dream that they will be creeping into England in the depths of the witching hour and snatching little boys and girls from their beds. Let her dream that they will be reaching into the bedroom windows and pulling out little boys and girls. And then, Sophie paused. Do they eat them on the spot or do they carry them away first? Sophie asked. They is usually just popping them straight into their mouths like popcorn, said the BFG. Put that in the dream, Sophie said. And then the dream must say that when their tummies are full, they will go galloping back to giant country where no one can find them. Is that all? Said the BFG. Certainly not, said Sophie. You must then explain to the Queen in her dream that there is a big, friendly giant who can tell her where all those beasts are living so she can send her soldiers and her armies to capture them once and for all. And now let her dream one last and very important thing. Let her dream that there is a little girl called Sophie sitting in her windowsill who will tell her where the big friendly giant is hiding. Where is he hiding? Said the BFG. Well, we'll come to that later, Sophie said. So the Queen dreams her dream, right? Right, said the BFG. Then she wakes up, and the first thing she thinks to do is, what a horrible dream. I'm so glad to see it was only a dream. And then she looks up from her pillow, and what does she see? What does she see? The BFG asked. She sees a little girl called Sophie sitting on the windowsill right there in real life before her very eyes. How is you going to be sitting on the Queen's windowsill, may I beg? Said Sophie, the BFG. You are going to put me there, Sophie said, and that's the lovely part about it. If someone dreams that there is a little girl sitting in her windowsill, and then she wakes up and sees that the little girl really is sitting there, then it is a dream come true, is it not? I is beginning to see where this is driving to, the BFG said. If the Queen is knowing that part of her dream is true, then perhaps she is believing the rest of the dream is true as well. That's about it, said Sophie, but I shall have to convince her of that myself. You said she is wanting the dream to say there is a big friendly giant who is going to talk to the Queen. Absolutely, said Sophie, you must. You are the only one who can tell her where to find the other giants. How is I meeting the Queen? Said the BFG. I is not wanting to be shooted at by the soldiers. The soldiers are only in front of the palace, Sophie said. At the back there is a huge garden and there are no soldiers there at all. There is a very high wall with spikes on it around the garden to stop people climbing in, but you could simply walk over that. How is you knowing all this about the Queen's palace? Said the BFG. Last year I was in a different orphanage, Sophie said. I was in London and we used to go for walks around there. Is you helping me find this palace? Said the BFG. I has never dared to go hiding and sneaking around London in my life. I'll show you the way, Sophie said confidently. I is frightened of London, said the BFG. Don't be, said Sophie. It's full of tiny dark streets and there are very few people about in the witching hour. The BFG picked Sophie up between one finger and thumb and placed her gently in the palm of the other hand. Is the Queen's palace very big? He asked her. Huge, said Sophie. Then how is we finding the right bedroom? Well, that is up to you, Sophie said. You're supposed to be an expert at that sort of thing. And you was absolutely sure the Queen will not put me in a zoo with all the caterpillars? Of course she won't, Sophie said. You'll be a hero, and you'll never have to eat snozcumbers ever again. Sophie saw the BFG's eyes widen. He licked his lips. You mean it? You really mean it? No more disgustive snozcumbers? You couldn't get one if you wanted to, Sophie said. Humans don't grow them. And that did it. The BFG got to his feet. When is you wanting to mix this special dream? He asked. Now, said Sophie, at once. When is we going to see the Queen? He said. Tonight, Sophie said, as soon as you mix the dream. Tonight, said the BFG. Why such a flush-bunking flurry? If we can't save tonight's children, we can anyway save tomorrow's, Sophie said. What is more, I am getting famished. I haven't had a thing to eat in over 24 hours. Then we had better get crackling, said the BFG, moving back towards the cave. Sophie kissed him on the tip of the thumb. I knew you would do it. Come on, let's hurry. And that's the end of that chapter. Now you know what the plan is. We'll see what happens. Good night.